Hello guys, welcome to another video here in JS Education. My name is Carlos Santana and this is the video number 54 for the course Developing a Headless CMS with TypeScript and GraphQL. So let's start. So in the last video I show you how to create basic variables, CSS variables. So let's take a look in our sandbox right now. And if you remember, if you go to inspect, you will see all the variables we created here, like button danger color, dark, info, light, primary, etc. And also we have the colors, palette colors, the font size, etc. So now we are going to apply those CSS variables into components we have. So we need to create a new folder called button inside components, and then a file there that is gonna be button.styled.ts, and we are going to start with this file, which is the styles that we want to apply to our button. Let me just copy this file here. Okay, so basically here what we are going to do is import all of types. So we have the color, size, shade, variant, font size, font weight, etc. The big function to create the CSS variables. And then we are going to specify a base class name with the name of the component, in this case button. This get class basically is just going to concatenate the class name you are passing to the base class name. So it's going to generate like button dash danger, button dash primary, etc. The button color styles, basically we just pass the color type and the variant, and based on that we create our CSS variables. For the color, for example, we are going to generate the base class name dash color type, in this case danger, for example, and if it's outlined or not, and then color. And we do the same for the background color, the border color, and the hover. And at the end, basically those variables are the same ones that we are generating in our sandbox, right? So basically we are trying to generate button danger color, button dark background color, button dark hover color, etc. So pretty much is that one. And then we just apply the styles and we use the b function to generate that CSS variable. So this is going to generate, for example, something like bar dash dash button danger color or whatever, right? So we are going to do the same to all the styles we have here. The get color styles basically is going to loop through all the colors we have available, like for danger, dark, info, light, link, primary, secondary, success, and warning. We are going to declare that class for each color. In this case it's gonna be button dash danger, button dash dark, etc. And we include the colors and the variant for those ones. The button variant styles is if we have the class contained, we pass that one, and otherwise if it's outlined, we just pass variant that outlined. If you see here, basically we pass the variant. The button size is to change the size of our button. We have a class for the size small, a class for medium, and depending on the size is going to change the padding, is going to increase, and also the font size is going to increase depending on that, the large, extra large, etc. And then the button shape, by default the regular is going to have a border radius of 5 pixels, and then if it's round it's going to be 30 pixels, and if it's square it's going to be 0 pixels, so it can be like total square. And we're going to have a button style class here. So basically those are the styles for the base button, and this one for the disabled one. And then we are going to export two components. The button base is going to be a regular button, a style button. We are using style components, if you remember. And then we are using this position relative and image position absolute is to position a spinner that we're going to add in the actual component, like to having a loading state, for example. And basically we just concatenate the button style, button size styles, the variants, and the shape. And then we export a link button base, which is a span that inside is going to have a tag. And we do the same. So basically this is when a button has a href property or href attribute, is going to be a link with a tag. And when you don't have a href and you just have a regular button, you will use this button. And we attach the same styles there. Okay, so now let's create our component button.tsx. Which is this one. Basically here, we're going to import the spinner component that we will create later. We import the types, and we import our button base and the link button base and the base class name. Then we have the props, color, href, shape, size, variant, disable, is loading, and loading text. So basically we just define initial values for those props. So the children is gonna be the text inside our button. For example, if you have the component button, this is the children, as you know. So we keep that on the button text. And then the button data is going to have an array of all the possible values for those variants and for those variables here. So those are going to generate the classes, the class names. So it's going to generate the main class name with the button or the base class name, and then the data is going to be based on this. So if the size is medium, it's going to generate button dash MD. If the variant is outlined, it's going to be button dash outlined. If it's primary, it's going to be button dash primary, etc. And if it's loading or disabling, we are going to add the disabled class there. And then if it's loading is true, we are going to add a spinner and then the loading text, right? So the loading text needs to be passed as a prop there. And then if we are passing an href, basically we are going to render the link button base, and we're going to generate an a tag here. And I think I need to have this part here as well. And if it's not an href, if it doesn't have an href, then we just render the regular button. So now let's create the index ts just to export the button component. And now in our icon, we need to make some changes as well. So the first thing is gonna be to import cx. Also, we need to add these new props, library, field, stroke, width, and height. I'm going to change the props as well. We need to bring the library. The library can be font awesome, feather, and material. And now based on that, we need to delete the icon prop library. And if it's font awesome, we need to delete the width and height. And then before we render icon here, we are going to it says that if the library is different than font awesome, meaning it's feather or material, we are going to import an SVG coming from the icons. So if you notice here on my desk at the beginning, I have these two folders. So in the component icon, you need to put these icons here. So you will have all these icons once you pull the repository or you clone it. And then you need to create a new folder called spinner, sorry. And then inside spinner, you are going to put the loaders here. So this is going to load icons on demand, I can say. So for example, if you see here are the SVGs for feeder and the material, we just have one. And this is requiring that SVG and getting the default. So based on that, we generate or we render the custom icon. If the library is awesome, then we just render or I tag. If we have children, we just pass it. If we don't, we just render the icon isolated. And that's it. And now, after this, you can create the spinner component. So basically, you just create spinner.tsx. And this is very simple. You just need to render an image with the spinner, loading the spinner image from the loaders. And basically, now you just need to create the index. To export the spinner. And finally, you go to the index outside and you need to export now your button, your icon, and your spinner component. Just like that. And you need to do the same on the tsconfig. So first you export your button and then also the spinner like that. And now in order to test all of this, we need to make some changes in our sandbox. So for this, the first thing you need to do is go into sandbox and then index.html. And we are going to add some styles there that don't worry if you cannot copy them right here in the video because those are a lot, but everything is gonna be in the code. So basically, when you open this index on the head, you need to paste all of these styles. And these styles are from a library called Prism, which basically works to highlight actual code, JavaScript code, or different languages. And those are the styles for like highlight with colors and make it look great. So don't worry if you cannot copy this right away. Now if you go to app, we are going to change some styles here. So for example, we are going to import the Prism function, the Prism object. Also, we are going to import the component from GSX. We are going to render GSX code. We are going to import also data. I'm going to show you this file later. We are going to have our toggle component here to change or to switch between the like and dark button. Basically, we are going to set that in our dataset.theme. And also, we have 3 new styled components. If you see here, we have the style app. I'm going to add these 3 more. Style block, which is a div with the flex, space between, width, block, etc. And also we have the style show code, has some margin top, and then the style prep. So this is gonna be for the code. Now in the app, we are going to add some code here as well, because we need a state to show the code. Basically a handler to show the code that we want to see. Otherwise, just hide that one. And then the use effect on the component did mount. When you don't pass any dependency here, is working like a component did mount. we are going to execute the highlight all from Prism. So that's how we are going to do that. And now here you import your toggle, and then this one, instead of being icon, is gonna be components. And then of course you can create h2 icon, and then here h2 button. And instead of rendering the button manually here like we did with the icon, I'm going to use the data, buttons data, I'm going to create later, but basically I'm going to map. Is basically the buttons is an array of components that are being rendered, and you pass a title, prop, description, render, and code. And basically we have the style block here, the title of the block, the description of or the prop, and the render. The render is the actual button being rendered. And basically it's type prep. Here is the code that we're going to show. We're going to render with the JSX syntax, and we're going to have an icon to show or hide the code based on the index of each code. So the next file, I'm going to show you parts of this because it's huge basically, but I'm going to create the first two elements so you can get an idea, and later on I'm going to copy all of that. So on data, you just create a buttons.tsx, and then for this you will need to copy something like this, and then export default buttons. Okay, so if you see here, basically I'm importing the button, and then I have this array of buttons. The title is gonna be button, description a standard button, the render is just button, and this is the code that is going to be highlight. So actually this needs to be the same as we are rendering here. So if you now go to your Sandbox, you should see now the button being rendered here. So if you see here is button, and then just a standard button here, your button, and this icon here, if you click, you will see the code that you are rendering for that button, right? So this is more like a documentation or like kind of a storybook we are creating here. The second one, give me 1 second. The second one that you need to copy is this one, which basically is going to do the same, but instead of using a button element, it's going to use an A tag. So for this, you just need to pass the prop href, and it's going to render an A tag. So this needs to be the same. So if you see, the buttons looks the same. The code, of course, is different, but if you inspect this button, this one is an href, and this one, the first one, is an actual button, right? So in this case, we can be more semantic. Like when we have href, we just render a link. When we don't have it, we just render a button. And now let me copy all the buttons that I already include in this array, because the list is huge. Don't worry if you cannot copy them. All of them is gonna be available on the repository. But give me 1 second because this file is pretty big. Okay, have those now. Okay, so after this, you need to paste all of this code, and that is going to render all of the buttons. So after this, we are going to test the shape. This is a regular button, this is a round button, this is a square button, and the same with the A tag. The styles are exactly the same. And then you can see the code for all of this, right? Then those are the colors. This is the primary, secondary, info, success, warning, danger, dark, like, and link, for example. And then you can see the code here, how it's been rendered. Also the disabled. Disabled, basically, you cannot click on the buttons. The outlined version, the sizes, extra large, regular size, etc. And the same with the links, right? So every time you have all the props and you add an href, it's going to generate an A tag. And those are the loading text. This is a state when you have a loading prop is loading through, and then the creating is the loading text, just like this. Loading text creating and is loading, and then create is gonna be once it's finished, right? And you can do the same with the A tag. So yeah, so that's pretty much the code. I hope you like it. And remember that if you have any question, feel free to join our Slack community. The link is in the description. And that's it. Thank you for your time and see you in the next video. Bye.